Hey there, film fans. I am Jeff.
I am Dave.
And I am John. And welcome back to The Love of Cinema, a pod in which we'll challenge one another to discuss movies both new and old with a strictly positive critical eye.
That's right. And to make sure we don't say anything ridiculous or stupid, we are going to make this a drinking game.
Drinking game.
So if we do say something stupid or negative about a film, you will hear this sound. That means we're drinking, and we hope you at home are drinking as well.
So pour yourselves a glass and give it up for the films we love and perhaps a film that needs some love.
Yeah, we're going to find out soon. We are going to get into our really, really, really fun Oscars versus Razzies segment, or the best of film, the worst of film segment in a second. But first, let's send it over to John for some shout-outs.
All right, the shout-outs. As always, we drink beer on this podcast, so we have a beer sponsor. His name is Carlos Barroza. The boys are drinking it if you want to check out the images right there. He's got a handle on Instagram where he shares all the information of his brews and his process and keeping us up to date on him becoming a beer master. The handle is Barroza Bar 2019. That is CBARROZOBAR 2019. And as always, the music you hear on this episode and every episode is provided by the artist Dasein. If you're digging this music, you can go over to soundcloud.com/Dasein-artist for all free downloads. What do you think, you guys?
Man.
Did you have a good week? Everybody a good week?
Good week. I mean, now that we brought up the beer, the only complaint I have is there's a range in them that are black lids, and they're really chocolatey and really good, but the black lid makes it look like you've already taken the lid off the bottle. So sometimes they get lost if you sit them next to your empties. And I don't want to be throwing that out. I don't know.
Yeah, don't be throwing that out, dude.
I'm going to put a Sharpie mark on them.
Yeah, it sounds like
a you issue, Dave.
What? It's a lighting issue.
It's a lighting issue, really. It's a lighting, yeah.
Don't listen to it.
Okay, that's for me saying negative things about the beer.
Yeah,
fuck you.
Your beer.
Yeah, Carlos has got to be... There's only so many colors, Dave, of caps.
Jeff,
what you guys been watching? We'll get to it in a second. What have you guys been watching?
Dave, what do you hit me, dude?
Dude, I'm still going with WandaVision. I could unpack that for 3 hours, but we won't. It's coming along nicely though. They did the slow burn for the first 2 episodes and then didn't. And then I went on a massive sequel binge. I went through Avengers: Age of Ultron, Avengers: Infinity War, RoboCop 2, The Prophecy 2, budget cuts, The Prophecy 3, random appearance by Brad Dourif. I went
what the
nuts.
What happened to you this week? Are you okay?
I'm working on a post for a film, so I have movies going while I'm doing it, so that you believe it or not, that helps me focus.
Yeah.
Dave, if you at home have a movie addiction, you can dial the toll-free hotline of 1-866.
Yeah,
talk to your wife.
I'll tell you what though. I mentioned The Prophecy a couple of weeks ago because I caught it and I was like, oh, this is not bad. It's Christopher Walken being an angel, and the sequel not too bad. And then the third one is just they're like, okay, money. We can just get money for this. And then the fourth one, I tuned out in the first 10 minutes. It was absolutely fucking woeful.
Just what they do, right? Nice, dude. I'm still going with that Ken Burns series on the war, which has been awesome, very educational. But after our show last week, anyone who, again, politics, if I was just still kind of in the mood for that and I was wanting some justice there for myself. So I watched Frost Nixon.
Oh, yeah, I just talked about that today. Yeah.
And that was extra cool because anyone who has seen our first movie we'll be talking about this week, Frank Langella is in that as well. So that was a fun little double bill. I watched them Sunday and then Monday night. I finally watched The King of Staten Island and I enjoyed it. Yeah, nice. I did enjoy it. I had a lot of fun, and it did have a little bit more. Heart's not the right word. I think Judd Apatow did something a little more than he usually does. I feel like he tackled a little bit more reality with this than he tends to lean into. The gimmick that is proposed through his protagonist's journey in most of his movies is kind of the anchor. But I felt like what was happening what's his name? The main actor. So sorry.
Jesus Christ.
Jesus Christ.
Steve Buscemi.
I'm Steve Buscemi. God damn it.
Okay, wait. We all forgot Steve Buscemi?
Yeah. No.
We did not forget Steve Buscemi. The fuck is his name?
Pete
Jeff?
Davidson.
Oh Pete Davidson. Thank you. God damn it.
Oh!
What's happening to Pete Davidson?
Oh, I see how you got there.
Yeah. Stephen Schiff is in it, and he's wonderful. Jeff, you mentioned that scene that he's in. He has a great scene at about halfway through. But what's happening to Pete Davidson is helps create a reality around him of this kind of lower middle class that is very, it's a good example of it. Just happens to be set in Staten Island. I'm not saying it's not only uniquely Staten Island. There's some really uniquely Staten Island attributes to it, but I feel like he ended up commenting on it. There was a lot of class issues in it that came up that I thought were really interesting. And he doesn't talk to it. It's not like he's hitting you over the head with it, but I wasn't just laughing. There was a very real human story underneath that wasn't riding on the vehicle of a 40-year-old virgin or this is 40, the way that there's kind of this thing that is always being talked about. I thought this journey was a little bit more interesting. I watched It Follows for the first time. Did you guys ever check that horror movie
we almost did
ago?
that. We almost did that for Halloween.
Yeah, that was refreshing. That's a pretty cool indie horror movie. If no one's seen that, I'm going to shout that out for sure. That was worth watching. That's on Pluto TV right now if anybody gives a shit. And then I finally watched a Billy Wilder. Everyone knows I fucking love that guy. I had not seen Sabrina, and I watched that 2 nights ago, and that was really wonderful. Humphrey Bogart, Audrey Hepburn, and William Holden. Check it out. Really excellent. Anyway,
shit.
Jeff, what'd you watch, dude?
Well, after last week's podcast, when I forgot that I hadn't seen Tiger yet, I watched all of Tiger.
Fuck yeah, god damn it.
Pretty
good, right?
It was a good documentary. I do wish there was more golf.
Especially in the second one is a lot of story and not as much golf.
It's a lot of. It's the first one's about the dad, and the second one's about the affair, and that's definitely the story for sure. This is a guy who was number one in the world for 12 years in a row. Like other sport would that be the way. And they didn't even mention that. Like I know he was good, but they yada shit too much. I needed more golf. They did not. They assumed we knew too much about him. I think there was. How about
this? The MJ documentary that we talked about earlier this year. The MJ
so
series.
Much basketball, exactly.
But remember how I was saying I wanted a little more story. I think a little bit in between of both of these would have been perfect for me because I know what you mean. I almost felt a little bad for Tiger. Like they were really giving it to him, and I know the whole point was to humanize him, and they leave you on an uplifting note that he's still probably one of the greatest, if not going to be the greatest of all time. But I don't know if anyone who didn't follow golf would walk away from that understanding that he is dramatically better than anyone who has ever played the game in terms of
that at the
talent.
Minimum he's Michael Jordan. Like on what other any other documentary would try to sell him as Michael Jordan. This is like that's the starting point is he is the Michael Jordan of golf, Anyway, so I could use more golf, but obviously I couldn't stop watching. That was my workout watch though. So Chloe actually had to watch Sound of Metal, so that was take 2 for me. But she's in an audiology class, and I really like the movie, so we're going to talk about that in a couple weeks. So the only other movie I got to watch for pleasure is I teach children voice lessons, and one of the schools that I'm working at is doing Descendants, the musical. And so I watched Descendants on HBO.
The Alexander Payne, George Clooney movie?
Nah, bro. Come on, dude. Come on.
It's
Descendants.
a cartoon. I never saw that movie.
It's not a cartoon. It's a Disney Channel thing. Dove Cameron, and it's like the descendants of all of the fairy tale kids. So there's like the evil ones. So the lead of the movie is Maleficent's daughter, and then they go to like the good kid school. And I'm not even kidding. Guess who the cool kid is at the good kid school? The son of Beauty and the Beast.
Jesus Christ.
Beauty and the Beast's son. That's right. Yeah. So anyway, I had to watch that for the school. So that was my
they are milking it.
Yeah, dude. So that's what I got to watch.
Nice. Shout out also one more thing of what you've been watching. I just want to bow down before all the people who gave us those amazing Bernie memes. Thank you so much. Please don't stop.
Yeah,
that was an incredible 2 days.
Did you hear what he did with the sweater? Like he got the photo and put it on a sweater and released it for sale and sold out in like 5 seconds flat in all sizes, and then gave that money to Meals on Wheels in Vermont. Like he turned it around and used it to raise money, and like
so good. We love you, Brandon. God, that was funny.
That was kind of cool.
All right, let's do a quick round of news while we're here. Dave, get us some headlines.
Oh, what do we got? Let's see. Oscars adjust international film voting. They're mixing it up apparently on the international films.
Do you think this is a direct response to the controversy behind of course I don't have it like right in front of me, but the American film that was made this year that's primarily in Korean.
Yeah,
can you get that for me?
I don't
I'm
know.
gonna get it for you right
I'd
now.
like to think they're just being more
list.
inclusive.
But this is like days before like we're in the stretch here, and I'm assuming this goes into effect.
I think you're talking about Minari. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
With Daniel Kim.
Correct.
Yeah, it should be. You know what? If it is or if it isn't, I'm glad they're responding, and I don't care if they're responding directly to that. Like, maybe we needed a movie like that, because I don't know if anybody remembers, but a couple of years ago, Roma kind of had a similar situation. Like, technically, he produced it out of his company, which is not based in Mexico, but they filmed everything in Mexico, and yet, it was still considered a foreign film. But then, I don't know, there was some mix up with that. So I think this is good. I feel like I'm not sure what the details are. I need to read more about it, but they do need to make some adjustments, because if we're going to be English-speaking films, it cannot just be American films. If we're going to try to be more progressive with our storytellers and our storytelling in this country, then we're going to have this come up a whole lot, aren't we? We're going to have multilingual films in America all the time.
Yeah, and that was a Golden Globes issue anyway, because like Parasite was in both last year, was in Best Picture and Best Foreign Language Film. So Minari could be for the Academy Awards, but the Golden Globes stirred up a whole bunch of controversy where they said, no, you are going in the foreign language film. You cannot compete in the drama category, and that was that was bad press. Yeah.
Yeah, especially considering the way it worked out.
Yeah.
Jesus.
What else we got? Yeah. Chris Nolan is pissed.
Chris Nolan
is pissed.
Yeah. He doesn't like what Warner Brothers has done with their release strategy, and he's taking his bat and ball and fucking going home.
I mean, you know what?
Yeah, he's apparently they talk. This one's still rumor. So he's talking about breaking ties with Warner Brothers, he's been there for like 11 years producing films, or 12 years or something.
More than that, right? I thought he produced the first Batman with them. That was 2003, right?
Yeah. Okay. So it's been 18 years or something.
Yeah. No, it's Citizen 5. First one was Citizen 5.
My bad.
Damn.
You know what? Yeah. I mean, somebody's gonna eat him up too.
Oh yeah.
Somebody's gonna be like,
it's like,
Paramount's like calling him right now.
Nobody's thinking Chris Nolan's gonna be wandering the streets looking for a fucking job. He's gonna be fine, but. I think it's that's a big step to step away from Warner Brothers, especially when they're trying to, bring people in to their like HBO Max and all that sort of stuff.
I'm still going to be patient with them. I'm hoping that as we as a country learn more about what's happening with the virus and how many people are vaccinated and stuff, I'm hoping that they're going to react accordingly in the cities that they can react accordingly to. Because I totally agree with him. Not every movie is supposed to be watched at home for the first time. Like,
I mean, case in point, the trailer released today for Kong versus Godzilla. Holy fuck, dude! Do not watch that on your TV at home. Find the biggest damn screen.
Fucking iPhone.
Like, if they don't re-release that in cinemas, like when cinemas open up, what are you thinking? Like, bring that thing out in the cinema. So I want to see that in IMAX. Like that got Twitter blew up. Everyone got so fucking excited when that was released.
I know.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
Did you see Mechagodzilla in there? There's a very quick shot.
I missed that.
Yeah, there's a very quick shot up a set of stairs where people run down, and it's through the smoke and carnage in the background, and you can see Mechagodzilla.
They built oh my god, dude.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I love this movie. This reboot has been lots of fun. I have watched them at least twice, I think, each of them. And there was one more piece of news. How fast? Oh yeah.
The churn.
Let's put this out there as a little. Yeah, let's put this out here as a little poll to anyone who's listening or wants to tune in here. There's a little article on how fast do you cancel streaming services. So basically they're saying somebody signs on for a show and then cancels it. And apparently it's starting to be a problem with them because they're having trouble having predictable statistics.
I think you'll find
a whole other...
I would not surprise me if that's what's behind the fact that, what was it? The Boys came out for... like one episode a week instead of dumping the whole lot, and every Disney show is like one a week. It wouldn't surprise me if that's like to combat that is what's behind it, because I was actually surprised when they put Wonder Woman on there, they kept the trial, because all these people just signed up for the free trial, watched Wonder Woman and left.
Yeah. I knew somebody who did that with Homeland. They waited until the 10th episode of the season, and then they just watched 10 episodes that week and then canceled it. Of Showtime.
Yeah, so get back to us. I'm curious. I think I've been victim of it before, for sure. I've done it. Get back to us. Let us know if anyone wants to tune in. Instagram, this live chat, whatever the fuck. Let us know. Have you done it? Is this really a problem?
Yeah. No, you know what I do is I cancel my trial 7 months too late. I paid for CBS on 2 different credit cards because I kept forgetting.
You're the person they're counting on.
Yeah, I've done that way
CBS
more
would always,
than the other. Yeah,
CBS would always have like the award shows or something, and it was always on this All Access.
Yeah, I mean, this from a guy with a gym membership, and I think I know where the gym is.
I sent my letter. I sent my letter canceling recently. Other quick news is number 1 at the box office. Liam Neeson, he's back on top, baby.
And
Marksman.
How much did it earn?
$2 million. $2 million.
Times have changed. $2
million. AMC's in New York City get $2 million over the weekend by themselves.
that had to have been Long Island because the city itself isn't open. I've heard Long Island cinemas are open, but
I mean like 2 years ago.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
just talking about what $2 million means.
Okay,
that's one opening
worldwide.
That's a Friday night.
If you want to have some fun, hating on Ted Cruz's stupid fucking everything about him. Seth Rogen and Ted Cruz got a nice little Twitter bash. Ted Cruz said something about like, I love Fantasia. And Seth Rogen goes, everyone who made that movie hates you. And it started this
oh, that's a burn.
It just started this whole backlog because I think Ted Cruz deep down inside of his cold dead heart knows that that's actually probably true.
Oh, I mean, they have to know.
Well, just quickly, I'm going to take a couple of seconds to be a little bit indulgent. We have there's a pod. Well, it's not so much a podcast. They broadcast on Twitch, and I'm big on hanging out in the Twitch community. So, like, I tuned into these guys' show, Post Sanity, over in the UK, and they do a similar thing to us. They sit around and talk about movies. Theirs is a little less structured, so they go off topic all the time. And it's hilarious. And one of them dropped the fact that he was a background extra in Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. And he challenged me to find him. Now, I stuck on the stream for a little bit, and I found they narrowed it down to the approximate area that the scene was in. And you guys will get this on your screen in about 4 or 5 seconds. But I narrowed it down to 2 people. And I told him if I found him, he was going full screen on tonight's show. So it's either the square or the circle. I'm not sure which one it is, but I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to say that it's this one. And I told him I'd put him full screen if I found him. So if I got it right, he has to let me know.
I can see it on the Facebook live chat. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
You think it's the...
He's about 15 years old, Daddy. He doesn't look like that no more.
Oh my God, that's so good.
So yeah, has it been up there long enough yet? Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, that was yeah. I like playing with the community. Like the Twitch, like on Twitch, we all get together and check out each other's shows and throw other people's different areas shows and stuff like that. So I like to when a challenge gets thrown down, I'm on it. So I'll find out at some point if I got that right. But yeah, post Sanity, they're usually on like around 3 p.m. ish or so New York time from the UK.
Nice. All right, well let's do it, people. Let's talk about some movies. So this is week 3. Fuck, why did I forget? This is week 3 of our It Was the Best of Film, It Was the Worst of Film segment, where we pair a Oscar movie with a Razzie movie. Now, to give you a little preface, we are not bettors or odds makers. We are not championing these films either or. This is based on Las Vegas and things that are expected to be happening. Also, other caveat is all of these are streamable. Right? And we're doing them in order of the release dates. So these two movies were released relatively early compared to the other films in the award categories that we expect will be getting their nominations coming soon. So the Oscar film is The Trial of the Chicago 7, directed and written by Aaron Sorkin with a ridiculous cast. And then our presumed Razzie film is one of Dave's favorite movie of the year. Seen it twice. Fantasy Island, or shall we call it Blumhouse's? What the fuck, man? Jason Blum's Fantasy Island?
No,
it's
Blumhouse.
Fantasy Island, and it's Blumhouse, and it's based on the television series from a very long time ago. So that's it. Without further ado, let's get into The Trial of Chicago 7, which, according to IMDb, came out on Netflix the 16th of September, 2020, because I believe they do their dates British. It is the story of 7 people. We should put quotes around that because it's kind of 8 people, but the story of 7 people on trial stemming from various charges surrounding the uprising at the 1968 Democratic National Convention in Chicago, Illinois, which, if I know my history, is the Democratic National Convention that took place right after the presumptive nominee Bobby Kennedy was assassinated, and it led to a lot of protests because a lot of people didn't think that the Democratic Party was opposing the Vietnam War hard enough, and therefore opposing Nixon, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the cast, I think it's a trial movie, Aaron Sorkin. The cast is, I'm going to go in order here of IMDb, but I don't even know what the best way of doing this is other than that. Eddie Redmayne, Tony Award winner Alex Sharp, Sacha Baron Cohen, Jeremy Strong, yes, from Secession, although you wouldn't recognize him with his hippie beard in this. John Carroll Lynch, who you may know as possibly the Zodiac and also in Fargo. Yahya Abdul-Mateen II is fucking awesome in this movie. Mark Rylance, 3-time Tony Award winner, 1-time Oscar winner, Mark Rylance, widely considered the best actor on the English language. Ran Shakespeare's Globe for 20 years. Mark Rylance. Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Ben Shankman, who you may know from Angels in America. Frank Langella, fucking legend of the American stage. And then there's a very, very awesome and important celebrity cameo that comes up later in the movie that we can spoil or not, but I won't right now. So that's it. I think that's enough of a setup. Who would like to get started with our conversation? Who wants to take it off?
I thought this was, I don't want to, Dave, I don't want to pimp you out to anything negative, but we made the dig at a Sorkin movie last week about the Social Network.
Yeah, I famously have not finished the Social Network.
Wait, did you hear the Social Network score in this, by the way? I should have written it down. But I swear on my fucking life, I don't know. I actually don't know if Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross did this score, but I was a that first theme. I swear on my life, it came like in the second half of the movie. I swear on my life, they fucking ripped it, or they cheated their way around it or something. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's cool.
No, it's fine. What was the question?
It's not them. A different guy did the music, but it did sound very similar. I think Aaron clearly loves that stuff. So I was just going to ask you, do you have an aversion to Sorkin? Is it a little too wordy? Because if you do, I think this movie might be a perfect example of how I really enjoyed this movie and I learned a lot, but I was a little less emotionally affected by this movie than I wanted to be. And I think there's a lot of different reasons for that. I still liked it and I'll probably watch it again because I think I need to rewatch it just for the education because I didn't know enough about this instance, certainly not about this trial, and probably not enough about the Democratic Convention in 1968, which I thought I knew a decent amount about. But did you feel like the style of his writing helped the telling of this story, or did it get in the way for you? Do you have trouble with Sorkin?
Let me put it this way. You know how like you're watching movies at home and you get like a little distracted sometimes, so you'll check your phone, you'll get up and make coffee, you'll do whatever, I did other things besides watching this movie exactly 0 fucking times the entire way through. Hooked.
Fuck yeah, dude.
Hooked from start to finish. Like they nailed the beginning. The editing is so fucking slick at the beginning of this movie. Yes. It's just like, and it makes it sets the tone for everything, and then they ease down into like more of a narrative. But like it's the only thing I can compare it to is the scene in Austin Powers where they're making all the subtle dick references and finishing it up.
That's why I wrote that down. The Austin Powers Woody gag.
Yeah, it looks like a
the
Johnson. Get that? Yeah.
Can you explain the opening a little bit for our friends?
Basically, yeah. Do you want to go for it?
No, go for it. You can do this one.
It basically goes from, there's a lot of characters in this movie. That's kind of, if there is a trap, I would not be surprised if Sorkin was to give a masterclass on how to write this screenplay. And he said, on my thumb wall, sitting there in front of me, my biggest note was, do not get lost in the fact that you have to weave a lot of characters in and out of this narrative. It's the same narrative. So how do you involve 8, 9, 10, 11 people quickly? How do you introduce them quickly? Jeff has referenced this illusion a lot. There's a really good Albee quote that you have to have good exposition in 15 minutes or less, or your audience is gone. I've heard Aaron say the same thing before in his masterclass videos. And he crushes this thing in like 7 minutes. There's like 5, maybe 6 minutes, maybe it's less than 7 minutes, where he introduces every single character, every single major obstacle of each character and intention, which is his big thing. He wants to introduce obstacle and intention as quickly as possible. He does it for every single one of them, and then starts the movie where he goes back in time and builds up to those points and goes beyond. So you never, if you were like me and probably like everyone else, and you did not know any of the details of these people's lives, you fucking get it at that point.
Yeah, you get a masterclass in 7 minutes of these people. Like it's everything you need to know up until this point, except they kind of go through and show in flashbacks. But I the only thing that I found wanting was probably a little more of what actually happened at the beginning. But I do like the way they did it because, like I said, I was with the whole time.
I thought it created some suspense.
Just to be clear to everybody first, there are multiple groups trying to organize protests. So all of these Chicago 7 were not one group, if you haven't seen this film yet. So I wrote down the Black Panthers were not a part of this group, but they threw in a member of the Black Panther Party into this group as they claim to make them seem less likable, more violent, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it's the Students for the Democratic Society, which is Eddie Redmayne and Alex Sharps, the Youth International Party, which were the Yippies, for anybody who knows their Hair musical. Yip, 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 yip. Yeah, all the Yippies, crazy hair, fornication and such. So they were like the more crazy people. That's Abbie Hoffman, right? He's still kind of a known person. And then there's another one, which is the guy who was the World War II holdout. He had his own group. So there were like 3 different groups trying to organize, and all of them were arrested and tried together for this. And the opening sequence is showing all of them try to get permits and try to organize basically the same demonstration, but as different organizations. And that is part of what John was talking about with the screenplay. It's how it's confusing because it's not just one trial of one particular ideology or group. They're all sort of a little different but similar.
And exposition should do a few different things. Exposition should teach you how to watch the movie. So we're talking about style. So he does that well, which Aaron is always crushed. He has a very specific style, and he always lets you know with the way, now that he's directing especially, the editing matches the cadence of the dialogue. So he's going to teach you how to watch it. He's going to give you a little taste of what it felt like to live in 1968. Which is, there were these multiple parties going on. This was probably a little confusing to people who were alive in 1968. So we wanted to get you in the mode of communication for people who were probably watching this, like, voyeur, pedestrian, people who were just tuning into the trial and trying to follow.
If they were alive in 60s, they don't remember the 60s.
Yeah. I mean, I know what you mean. I'm sure a lot of fucking people did. But yeah, I don't know. I think he does a good job with that as well as introducing the core things we've already said, which is just very literally what characters are dealing with, obstacle, and what they're going to be trying to do. So he does all 3 in a very tight, perfect way. Dave, you're right. It's a masterclass opening to what could be a very convoluted film if somebody with a master writer was not at the helm here trying to make sure everything worked. And this is one of those examples where, and we're not there. Of course, I'm just speculating here, but this is one of those things where I would bet a lot of money that all of that was on the script. I bet he put all of that on the page so that when they got to the editing room, it was already there, because if it didn't read clearly, he was fucked. I don't think he was going to be relying on the filmmaking to try to make it clear, which is something I'll probably keep talking about in this conversation, just how crystal clear the differences in the characters and their intentions and obstacles are throughout this movie. Anyway, let's keep going.
I'll tell you what. Right at the very beginning, though, that opening sequence, like just before the opening sequence, the first logo, the Cross Creek production studio logo. I just want to take a couple of seconds. That logo would have cost a fucking fortune. What are they thinking? Like, this production house has made this full.
Whenever production houses do that, I'm always like, wow.
Family Guy really takes the piss out of that at one point.
Less is more.
But yeah, I did. I loved this. I thought it was uplifting where it needed to be. They really, the opening of the trial is like beautifully crafted chaos when they finally get to the trial. They make the defendants likable. Joseph Gordon-Levitt is likable as the prosecutor. Frank Langella, who is amazing as the judge, is a complete bastard. And it's a real testament to how good Frank Langella is, because I love Frank Langella. Like, God,
he is fucking awesome, yeah.
And you hate this guy.
The way you leave this movie hating the judge and loving Frank Langella, who are the same person, is fucking incredible. That's a masterclass of like that villain role. That's not your typical like good versus evil villain. Like he's just by the end when it comes up and it says he was voted unqualified by the board of whatever. Like you're sitting there and you're like, yeah, he nailed it.
Yeah.
When he says nobody's ever accused me of being a racist, it's like Jesus Christ.
There's a couple of really good responses that's just sort of kind of make you go, in this. So yeah.
I saw this morning. I love this movie too. I did. I wrote down this is the least Sorkin of all the Sorkin movies, and I don't know. We can unpack the style a little bit, but he still was verbose, but it was textured. Right. So if I didn't love the newsroom after a while because it really seemed like one beat, like everybody was speaking at the same volume, at the same speed. They were calm, or even the shots were a little bit wider maybe so that there wasn't as much cutting. It just seemed tame, even though it was paced perfectly, the same way Molly's Game and all of his other movies have been. And he did the one thing in spy movies that I always have the biggest problem with, which to our JFK episode was my only objection with JFK, which is when you hold information from the audience so that you can surprise them at the trial. But we should have seen that earlier when they're uncovering all of this stuff, because this movie goes into the trial right away, right? Which he also did with To Kill a Mockingbird, his update for the stage. They get to the trial pretty much right away. Within 5-10 minutes, you're already pretty much in this trial. The things were unraveling really well in a way that didn't seem like he was holding out for gotcha moments. And so that way, when the things came, a lot of them came from Frank Langella. A lot of them came as obstacles. I mean, that's just good craftsmanship, right? You trust your script enough that you say, all right, for this 10 minutes, the audience is going to be headed in this direction. And then one sentence from the judge is going to completely change the mood to go in this direction. And then rather than sit there and like, even the cameo that comes in at the end, which sort of becomes the savior moment, sort of, wasn't forced. It really felt genuine, and I thought that carried me through the. I thought it was great.
That was a good cameo.
Not flashy.
Yeah.
Not showy. There's nothing
was
high
flashy.
Court drama.
It was never a bit where it wasn't grounded.
Right. Yeah, that's why the comment I made at the beginning, I don't want that to sound like a negative thing. It was actually refreshing, that what I said about I didn't know if I was super connected to individual characters, but I meant that as a compliment because when you're dealing with ensemble pieces, especially in the courtroom style drama, if you try to put the square through the round peg with trying to force one person's point of view, sometimes you're going to lose a lot of material. So again, I feel like he was like, how do I get this whole thing across? Especially because as a person who was alive then, trying to experience this trial and see where you stood on the hands of justice, what do you agree with it or not agree with what they did? Individual groups or the entire trial, the entire ruling, whatever. I felt like this was very refreshing that one, stylistically, and I love Aaron Sorkin, but he did not push his dialogue style into this as much. So I feel like it made a lot of room for a different range of pacing and styles of dialogue. Like the characters didn't sound like they were speaking Aaron Sorkin dialogue all the time, which again, I don't mind, but it sounded like individual characters, which was refreshing. And in doing that, because he's already such a master storyteller and can juggle so many hats. He's done so many good shows with so many huge ensemble casts. Because he wasn't trying to make everyone sound like Aaron Sorkin at all, there was room for everyone. So I wasn't sitting there waiting to start caring more about one person than the other, which I found very refreshing. I learned a lot more because of that. I still cared about these people, but I wasn't like, who's got the biggest obstacle that I'm waiting to see this entire, trial through. So I do want to bring this up to you guys. This is the biggest elephant in the room for me. And Aaron Sorkin is way too intelligent not to have known about this. Now, again, he made this movie before 2020. So he didn't know what was going to happen in the year 2020 with all the riots and everything, and certainly not the insurrection we saw a couple weeks ago. But he did see the 3 years leading up to this. He did see 15, 16, 17, and 18. He did see what everything was building to, and he chose to make this movie, which I find very interesting.
Anti-Trump. He's very
anti-Trump.
So
well, it is, but you need a little bit of emotion. He is. Yeah. You need some emotional intelligence. And I think a good conversation is required after a movie like this, because if you go into this and just see it as is, you might walk away thinking, see, the liberals did it in the 60s. So why can't we do it now? If you're a conservative and you feel that way about it. I think he is trying to, responsible audiences, trying to approach the nuance and the differences based on the principles, the values that these movements had, based on the ones that exist right now and trying to show you the difference between why was there some kind of self-evident righteousness in demanding some other kind of outcome. A lot of these protests were based on the war, right? Everything was coming out of, and I thought he did a really good job of having the different groups that are being tried fighting over these principles and fighting over what their end game is. What I think my favorite scene is that final. They have two really big showdowns where Abby and Redmayne's character really go after each other. And the second one is when Abby finally says, I don't think you and I have the same idea of what an outcome of revolution should be. And I thought that was so mature because it starts asking questions. It's not just showing you like, this is what revolution looks like. It's not a hippie protest movie. It's much more textured than that. And I don't know, I want you guys to get in here because I felt like, were you thinking about this the whole time? I felt like the way he handled the communication between the groups was where the education actually lied, not in what the trial was going to be. It was the way they spoke to each other about the goals that they all had, but we're trying to get to very differently. What did you guys think about that?
Nothing. James looking at me.
Jeff, yeah, I'm looking at Jeff. Jeff, you go.
Damn it, you gotta buzz us both for being a little innocent. Well, I didn't think about that specifically that way, but I'm happy that you brought it up. I mean, obviously the parallels are uncanny. We should be very clear that the protests of 1968 are very fundamentally different than police brutality. Even though there is crossover, there's racism. It was not really, except for the Black Panther Party. So that drew it in. But generally speaking, I'm not going to pretend like, oh yeah, all protests are the same like that.
But in 1968,
there's going to be parallels.
Yeah. The whole premise of the 1968 protest was that they were trying to, some peacefully, some not so peacefully, make a demonstration against nominating Humphrey because he was going to be pro-war. He was going to, right? That's how they interpreted it because Bobby was killed recently and they all thought this was fucking horseshit. They're throwing it down the chute. That was some kind of conspiracy. There was conspiracy involved. Like, we have to at least acknowledge that there are similarities. They went there with a very similar intent of, we are trying to disrupt a democratic process. Now, again, they thought of it differently. Eddie Redmayne's character was thinking, I want to do it peacefully. And then, of course, there's a nice turn in the movie. And Abby, the hippie's character, was like, fuck it. We're going to do whatever is necessary, even if that means getting into a fight with the police. So on the surface, I do think it's not hypocrisy. The whole reason he made this movie is because he's trying to show you there is a difference between what happened 2 weeks ago and what they were trying to do in 68. And it's based on values and principles.
Yeah, I mean, there's a massive difference. Like, because I first encountered this the situation in '68. I was reading of all things George R.R. Martin anthology. He does a book series, Wild Cards, where it's people with superpowers, but he puts them in actual historical context. And one of the books deals with the '68 Democratic Convention from the context of these characters. So that was my intro to that, and I feel like the whole protest was. Like the whole fight that they were having was to be allowed to protest in front of the building, not to come in and smash up the building. So there's a very difference between like what happened last week and what these guys' intentions were. Like if you can't see that, you've really like go back and watch it again. You were on your phone. So yeah.
But we live in a place where not everybody could see that. You know, we have a villain here in the country today called Antifa, which nobody's ever been arrested for because it's not real. and somehow it has become one of the great antagonists. Nobody had heard about it a year ago, and now all of a sudden it's everybody's biggest fear. It's not even real. Nobody's been arrested for it. But 7 more people were arrested in this fucking movie than there were in the history of this so-called movement and organization. And so there are a lot of parallels like that. The press matters more in this movie, which they talk about a little bit. I guess I could have used a little more, but headlines, that's it. That's how people got their news. So, and that was back to John's point. I think it is really cool that all of these groups were different. So that again, it wasn't just one ideology specifically, because they're trying to find common ground. Also, they are so-called Democrats who are protesting the Democratic National Convention. So it's very different from a lot of other things.
Yeah.
But
I agree
yes,
with that, of course.
I think a lot of the education did come from that. And to your point, John, where you're like, I wasn't really emotionally involved. Every time the Black Panther stuff, I thought that was handled really well. By Aaron Sorkin, who obviously is a white man of privilege, etc. But there's a Black Panther in here who doesn't have a lawyer, and he even cites an actual law that says basically you can't try somebody that doesn't have a lawyer because his lawyer was hospitalized, his lawyer was ill. It's not like he didn't have a lawyer, and at the time he couldn't represent himself, and so here he is thrown into a trial which he had nothing to do with. I mean, that made me fucking furious that whole time, and I thought it was handled really, really well by the filmmakers.
It was,
and especially the actor.
One point I did have, like when he finally boiled over and basically told the judge to fuck himself, and it was so long overdue, and it was like one of those yes moments, but he made sure that victory was very, very short-lived. Like, you got the victory, but there was a really bad fucking cost for it.
Yes, and the Joseph Gordon-Levitt reaction to that was really, really, really good. Yeah, and even I mean, I love Mark Rylance so much, and so I'm getting convoluted here, but there was a lot of good shit. About this. But yes, you're right, John. I did learn a lot.
Let's bring it in the context of what we're discussing, where it's going to possibly come up with some Oscar nods. It's really hard to narrow down like a nomination. Like, you got Frank Langella, Yahya, Mark Rylance. Directing, writing, editing, even cinematography. Like, I'm starting to really like this. This was shot on the Alexa LF, large format camera again. I'm starting to really like the look of that thing, and I really would like to get my hands on it at one point.
Well, but this was meant for a theatrical release.
Yeah, not gonna buy this one. It's that's $128,000, but still, I'll rent it for a shoot one day.
Anyone who's following, go for it.
I was going to ask Dave about the filming a little bit, because Sorkin loves a close up and he loves cutting, and he loves like that. He uses that in his editing in West Wing and Molly's Game and even in Social Network, which one of the reasons Social Network is good, Dave, is because it's him and Fincher working together. So there's a little tit-a-tat going on. But what did you think? Because I said before that it was a little wider. Did you notice that? Like, he was able to back off and let it play out a little bit more like theater, and I think that helped a lot of scenes, and that helped his pacing. What do you guys think about that?
I think he did that intentionally because of what we were talking about earlier with you're not trying to force a point of view down here. You want to show everyone's point of view, and you want to make it complicated for the audience. And I think one easy way to do that is to back off and show it as a proscenium style. Let's see multiple people dealing with each other in a single frame. Even when we're going across the room. Again, those two scenes that I love so much, the way he covered the fight scenes, there were always people, the two, Sacha Baron Cohen's character and Eddie Redmayne's character, were standing in the corners of this one large room. There were two different rooms, but in each of them, there were long rooms. And there were people seated beside them. So you always had, I loved that effect. I know it seems like such a small blocking thing, but it really does matter. Subliminally, subconsciously, whatever, you have these other members in the room who are acting as audience members. We know that some of them that were in the shots with each of them shared that person's point of view, and some of them did not. So it automatically created this lovely freedom I had to not judge either character in that scene who was arguing. I got to just watch. And I got to hear what I think Aaron Sorkin's favorite thing to do is, let me present two wonderful arguments and let me have you stir over that. I'm not going to try to force one of them down your throat. And I thought it was just so touching. He did that so much. Obviously, he did that a lot in the courtroom, where he was showing the wide shots of the tables with all of the defendants, showing a lot of times he went head on and showed the prosecution table and the defendant's table. And he would just show you everybody having to deal with whatever the fuck was coming off the bench from Langella. Dave, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, he definitely made use of this. This large format camera gets more, like, basically you get more width on the lens.
Huge,
there's less cropping, and it really, like, when they used it in the Five Bloods, they used that specifically in the jungle to open the jungle right up, and it was the same case in this, where they needed like the big wide courtroom shots where you encompass both sides, and I feel like they used the camera beautifully. Like the cinematography was something that was a part of. It was a part of what was going on, but you never once were distracted by it. So it was beautifully shot.
Yeah, I never thought about it.
Yeah, and it wasn't shoving it wasn't shoving costume and production design down your fucking face. Like any period piece is always like, oh my god, we're wearing beiges because we're in the 60s. Look at their fucking hair. You can smell the hair. I'm like, yay! I'm not shitting on this movie. I'm saying it's not. But wait, is this the first time Sorkin's written an ensemble piece where he didn't just have that one singular protagonist. I'd never really seen Sport Night, but do you think is this the first time he had to go at that?
I mean, as a movie, but I feel like
West
his
Wing.
shows
Oh,
are definitely
that's why
West
I
Wing
like
is
it.
definitely an ensemble
Well,
piece.
It probably
He's
has
sort of
exactly
Emmy,
the same amount of dialogue as a Social Network. It's just divided amongst 8 fucking people.
Yeah. The characters were so specific, though. I feel like he really did let these characters come to life, and I would love to know more. When did he get these actors involved? Because it sounded like,
Yeah.
I mean, it really did sound like they all brought their own thing to it. I could praise a lot of them for how much of them, as Jeff said, they're all so famous. So how much of them we got to see in each of their characters, which, you know, I want as much of that as possible with film style acting.
Right.
I don't know. We could talk about any of the performances. I think one that was a very well cast. I don't think he just said Mark Rylance is great, let's get him. Mark Rylance has done a million different kinds of things on stage, but we have seen him do a consistent kind of less is more, a little bit more pulled back, a little bit more insular performance than most of his film work. And I thought it was so interesting. Interesting is kind of a cop-out word, but it worked in such a captivating way for this character. He wasn't a screaming, you know, radical, out of bounds defense attorney in terms of his personality. He was on his principles and values, going back to earlier, but the way he communicated with all of the defendants and with the judge, that reserved thing that Mark Rylance brought to it made me fucking lean in every single time.
Yeah.
And it didn't feel like it was in my face and annoying the way that some, I think a lot of times, bear with me, radicals get branded in history as like they're just so in your face that they annoy some people. It's almost hard to believe that anyone would have found him annoying. And I thought that was just really good casting. Was there a standout performance for you guys, or?
I had 2. Rylance was one, and Jeremy Strong was the other one.
Nice.
Who apparently went full method and asked to actually be tear gassed.
Jesus.
So they refused, but he asked.
Yeah.
I hope that doesn't. Whenever you hear like quote unquote method people doing shit like that, I hope that doesn't bastardize like the art of the method actor. Because that's ridiculous.
Yeah, I hope he was responsible. But what do you think of Sacha, Jeff?
Sacha's, oh my god, he's amazing.
Yeah,
I
amazing.
had one little thing from a female. Somebody said, I love the cast. The cast is so great. If this was women, they would never get away with casting them old. They would definitely cast them younger. Because Abby Hoffman was supposed to be like 24 or something in this, and Sacha Baron Cohen is playing down his age a little bit, but he's older. But let me put that off to the side, though.
Totally
Obviously, there's a lot of guys. There's a lot of guys in this film.
Hmm.
So we'll let in the female perspective on that. Yeah, he was fucking awesome. There's no question. You can't see this movie and think he wasn't tender, but also boisterous. You still see the personality. You still see the bravado. But yeah, for sure. My standouts, I mean, Mark Rylance is one of my favorite actors on the planet. Seen him on stage a couple times, no question. But Frank, and then Yahya. I mean, Emmy winner for The Watchmen. Who played Seal, right? Seal? Who's the member of the Black Panther Party that was only in the state of Chicago, or sorry, the city of Chicago for 4 hours. Yeah,
maybe Peter is having issues.
I do want to make this last point. The thing at the beginning I was saying about the similarities, if you want to look at it from an irresponsible way, the nuance to find the responsible way to look at this, they never went away from the law, which is the biggest difference. The thing that was driving me nuts this past year with all of these protests and it was a hoax, all this fucking bullshit, was that none of it was using the law to actually prove anything. They were pulling at fringes. Every single court, throughout these cases against the states for trying to say there was voter tampering, these people were trying to use the law in their favor the entire time. And the times where we got the most upset, which I believe I did a little reading, I think it is based on truth, the stuff that happened to the member of the Black Panther Party, and whenever people were held
it was
in
so
contempt,
much worse, apparently
it was so much worse, but it was still factual. So the things that we got the most upset about was when the judge manipulated the law. That's what pissed us off. That's why they had a platform to stand on to have the protest in the first place, was that those principles were being manipulated from the top legally. They thought that was fucked up. And then we got to see it play out in a very tangible way with multiple orders of contempt in the courtroom, in a very ridiculous handling of the entire trial.
I mean, when he was taken out and bound and brought back in, gagged and everything.
I mean, Jesus
apparently,
Christ.
No, I mean, that was fucking horrid. But apparently, in real life, like for the purpose of this movie, they cut it way short. he was like that a lot longer in the actual event.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm sure they let that go. And speaking to that, the last point I wanted to make was the movie gods line up every now and then. And I was really interested in, what was happening in this movie into the Black Panther story. And in a few weeks, we're going to be talking about a movie by Shaka King starring Daniel Kaluuya called Judas and the Black Messiah, which is about the Black Panthers at this time, specifically starring Daniel Kaluuya's character as Fred Hampton, who is in this movie, and his murder. It's a famous murder. This is not giving anything away. Yeah. He is the one who got killed. He was the president. That's what Judas and the Black Messiah is about. So I cannot wait. The movie gods have lined up. We got to watch this movie first. We're primed and ready. Now we want to know more about what was happening with the Black Panther story, and we're going to get it in a few weeks when we get to watch that movie, which I believe comes out, if anyone is interested and they want to get on that ahead of time. I'm pretty sure Judas and the Black Messiah comes out. It's already out. It's on HBO Max. Or excuse me, February 12th. It'll be out February 12th on HBO Max. So that's fucking awesome. We get to learn a lot about that stuff. And anyone who's like me and has been eating up, trying to get some historical context on what's happening to us right now, these are two great movies for it. I definitely recommend watching this one. I learned so much, and I'm going to watch it again for sure.
All right.
Yep.
Good talk, guys. I loved it. Yeah, this movie's fun. On Netflix right now. Go check it out. And we are going to take a quick break, and we will be back to talk about Fantasy Island.
Yes, we will.
Film fans. And we're back.
We're back.
We're back, baby.
Yes.
All right. People, so here we go. We are now going to be discussing our presumed Razzie nominee coming up this year. People said it wasn't a good film. We're going to talk about it. The reviews, just to give you some context of what we're talking about, it has a Metacritic score of 22. That is an average score of 22 out of 100. It has a 4.9 on IMDb, and it has 7% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh, dear.
And somehow, this movie still evaded Nicolas Cage, who passed on the leading role, which eventually went to Michael Peña. Somehow, Nicolas Cage couldn't get on board with this. I think it's because Blumhouse does not give you a lot of upfront money. You have to hope it succeeds, and he's not about that shit when you're trying to buy islands.
Dave Bautista was associated with this at one point, too.
Yes, he was. Yeah. I actually forget who he was. I'm assuming the soldier, or maybe he could have been the lead. I have no idea. He could have been the Peña role. Okay, so this, it's based on the TV show from 60s, 70s. It is directed by, I had the wrong one up, Jeff Wadlow. Yeah. Co-written by him and Christopher Roach.
Anytime I see more than 3 screenwriters on a list, I'm like, okay.
Yeah, Rewrite City, baby.
Super Mario Brothers all over again.
Nice. Some notable names. You got Michael Peña, as I said. Maggie Q. Lucy Hale. From Pretty Little Liars. Jimmy O. Yang, you may know as Chi Yang from Silicon Valley. He's also in Crazy Rich Asians. Portia Doubleday from Mr. Robot. Ryan Hansen, Michael Rooker. A lot of that guy actors. Like, oh, yeah, that guy.
Yep.
You know? But those are the big names. And here's the plot. When the owner and operator of a luxurious island invites a collection of guests to live out their most elaborate fantasies in relative seclusion, chaos quickly descends. There you go. That's the pitch. Why don't I leave it there? Fantasy Island. Fantasies. Not enough of them are sexual, by the way. There's many that aren't sexual, these fantasies. Which surprised me a little bit, but it's okay.
I think this movie, Dave, what do you think, dude? I'm just gonna read really quickly to prompt you. I'm gonna see if you can talk on this. First, let me just clarify for everybody. This movie came out February 14th. So, like a lot of early horror movies in the first and second quarter of the year, they pumped this one out. I think a lot of people did not see it in the theater because that was when things were starting to get a little strange and a little scary. And I think a lot of people ended up watching it when it went to streaming, or they rented it because they got it out quickly to be able to rent online. Dave posted, this was one of the reviews. I'm not sure where this was from, Dave. Despite the presence of usually dependable actors such as Michael Peña and Maggie Q, Fantasy Island is the sort of inept, forgettable disaster that doesn't even induce "so it's bad, it's good" chuckles. That grim sense of feeling trapped is just as palpable for anyone stuck watching the film. I did not dislike this movie as much as that reviewer. I don't know about you guys. I think that is harsh and mean. And I think this movie may have been victim of the time it came out because everybody thought the world was ending.
Well, it's also, it's not just
negative.
It's not just that. It's like Fantasy Island was a beloved show.
Yeah.
So, and it was always like there was a lesson learned, or, you know, there was like occasionally they got a little bit ominous, but they never went like full horror, which is what Blumhouse is known for. Like, just watch their fucking opening. I'm obsessed with the logos this week. Like, Blumhouse's logo, at no point does it make you go, oh, I wonder what kind of film this is. Because it's like
I like their opening.
It's great. But I feel like a lot of people went in expecting more Fantasy Island, or like more of the brand Fantasy Island, not their interpretation of what they got. And I think that was responsible for a lot of people's negative reactions, because this really is like, it starts off, you're like, oh, okay, they're doing it, and no, they're not doing it. It's something else.
I will see you and I'll raise you. I think a lot of people who had never, people in our generation who had never seen that show before, went in thinking they wanted a lot more classic, sinister, Insidious, The Purge, Blumhouse horror, and it was neither. It was neither Super Fantasy Island, and it was also not gory, tons and tons of violence.
It wasn't
like
even Fantasy
demons.
Island.
It
changed its own rules 3 times during the course of the fucking movie.
Yeah.
I'm going to come back to that because I'm curious what you're knowing.
I'm not saying this is great. Jeff, what did you think? First takeaway, general takeaway. Did you have a good time watching it, or were you repulsed? I was not repulsed, but there were problems with the movie.
No, I was not repulsed. It just wasn't. It was okay for this kind of movie. I think it's about whether or not it's exciting, right? It's good and bad and that kind of stuff. It isn't really helpful here. So it's like, was it exciting, funny? Was it exciting, scary? Was it exciting, invigorating? Was it exciting, like romantic?
Was it exciting
and
at all?
Nothing about this movie was exciting.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't.
Dave.
But I didn't hate it. Even Chloe said a couple times. I watched it with her. She was like, it's like a bad Black Mirror episode. And I was like, all right, yeah, I guess so.
Oh, yeah, that's for Chloe.
We'll buzz Chloe.
That's good.
That is a good analogy.
She also only referred to the guy who somebody said that's a racist haircut. She only referred to that guy as racist haircut. I thought that was really funny.
Good.
That he had some zingers. That character, he had some really good zingers.
That was funny. I liked them together a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait. I'm confused.
I kind of wish it was campier,
the two brothers.
but whatever. It's fine.
Yeah, it was.
The brothers
fine.
could have been comic relief, I guess, but they weren't funny. But
Yeah, I mean, there was some great stuff there. There's subtle things in there. Like the desires are basically the 4 points on a compass. You've got the base desires, the desperate desires, good and evil. Like they set up a really wide tapestry to work with, and then of course the twist happens and it all starts to come together.
Right.
And like all that was done kind of well, but the second. And this is my biggest fucking gripe with this film. And don't get me wrong, the first time I saw this, I was like, yeah, this isn't so bad. On the rewatch, I was like, wow, this is really fucking long. And so,
what's this thing coming?
My biggest gripe is
149.
They showed how the island worked. It's like the biggest.
Oh, the crystal thing.
It's like you've given away the mechanics of how the island works. Like, there's no mystery anymore. There's no nothing. Like, did they learn nothing from Lost?
Exactly. That's all I was thinking about too, which I know kind of sucks for them because everybody's seen Lost, and you're thinking about how well they handled the mystery for the first several seasons. If you're a big fan of that show, I thought, and my biggest gripe, and I'm literally asking you, this is not rhetorical. I don't understand the ending. What did they resolve? And I'm sorry for the spoiler alerts, but we learned some information about Michael Peña's character. I don't understand how what they did by throwing her in the fountain. I really don't understand how it wrapped up. The thing that bothered me the most about this movie was the wrap up, the last 15 or 20 minutes. I really don't get what came together.
Yeah.
I must have missed something. It didn't make sense to me. I was like, what? What did that not explode the Well, I don't.
Because
What were they trying to do? What was supposed to happen?
Well, I guess they were breaking their own rules because everybody only gets one fantasy, but it seemed like it was somebody's fantasy at the end that she would go, but they already got a fantasy before, so it was basically a redo of a fantasy.
No,
Maggie Hughes skirted away from it.
The person who got the fantasy hadn't had one yet because she was kidnapped and brought to the island. Yeah, so that was the actual really good setup. Like, that girl was brought to the island and kidnapped. She was actually someone else's fantasy.
It's
yeah,
a robot girl. Yeah.
Right. Okay, you're right. That's on me. I forgot.
But
that.
the whole point of it is like, and that's that's my second gripe though, is that by the time they get to, and I'm just going to ruin this whole thing right now. So spoiler alerts right now. Fucking spoiler alerts for this film right here, Fantasy Island. When they get to the big twist where like they advertise it in the trailers, it's like, this isn't our fantasy, this is someone else's fantasy, and then they reveal whose fantasy it is and why, and it's like, so the line straight after that where they're talking about, because she goes off in this tirade, like one of the characters is revealed as being the girlfriend of a guy that was killed years ago, and she goes off in this thing about we were going to be together and that and everything else, and he walks away and he's like, they dated one time? And I'm like, yeah. They just cheapened the fuck out of the entire mythology they've set up.
Yeah.
Like, you spent all this time building up all this great ominous stuff and then just threw it away on a token crazy girl.
Yeah. And the only way that's going to work is if you make the whole thing satirical leading up to that, so that we can laugh at the ridiculous of the hour and a half that we just watched getting to that point. But they didn't do that. I felt like they were trying to sincerely build that ominous tone. And I like we said, I think I was thinking about Lost the whole time. I was like, please don't explain this. Please let me be a little confused or have a guess for what this is at the end of this. But I'm not blaming her, but that monologue that she gives where she explains everything, I felt like and maybe they wanted to do this, but I felt like I was watching a cheesy 60s television show. And maybe they were trying to do that. Maybe that was the point, for it to not be taken too seriously. But the little bit of intrigue that they had going for me was just eviscerated by when she started explaining everything, and then they push her into the fountain. I was like, this is just, it's all over for me. Whatever had happened up until this point.
Yeah, I was done the second they showed how the island worked.
Yeah,
to be honest,
I thought that was kind of lame.
Yeah, it was like, no, you don't need to show that. That had no bearing. Like, why would you give away how? Like, this would have been great, I think, if Blumhouse did TV. And this was 4 interconnected episodes of a TV series. Minus you can
kind of edit as you go with that kind of stuff, because then you do an episode or two, and then you can basically change your tone or pick your path for the next one. You know what I mean? Whereas this one, it's like they're printing it, and I think it's okay that it's confusing, and that some people's fantasies, the characters are they bleed. So I guess you could say they're real, but they're from a different time or maybe an alternate reality or something. And then some people's are just now they kidnap people and throw them on the island to be a part of your fantasy. I was even okay with that. It just seemed a little random. It seemed a little clever. And it says on IMDb that it was inspired by Cabin in the Woods and Westworld. Now, I don't know where that came from, but I could have used more of the camp, or at least the self-awareness that Cabin in the Woods had. Not necessarily like I Know What You Did Last Summer like camp, but the awareness that it's horror, but we're laughing at it. It's horror, we're laughing at it. Or Westworld, which would just go full blown, like, this is a smart movie. But nothing on this page made this a smart movie. And so they should have, I guess they should have gone camp or something. They should have given us something.
Yeah, I mean, there are some little gems hidden in there and amongst it. Like, there's a couple of great scenes where they subvert your expectations. When they're sitting by the pool and they call the model over, and she sits down and then proceeds to analyze their life. And like gives them like she's telling them, like, shouldn't you be like, maybe you should move out and stuff like that. And it's totally the opposite of what you would normally expect a writer to do with their character, because they usually make the model the dumb one, and because writers are unimaginative. But then there's like this scene.
Yeah, get out of here! Writers are heroes. Get out of here.
Not when they write women like that.
Oh god!
And the scene where you're shown the repercussions of sending the video, like you're in the revenge thing, and you're indulging in the little bit of the revenge fantasy that she has, and then she sends the video, and it's all funny. But then it cuts to the guy receiving the video, and it's like, oh, well, that's uncomfortable. I don't like that anymore. And that's exactly the reaction you're supposed to have. But like, there's little bits of clever writing in there, and I'm pretty sure that was one of the 3 writers listed that contributed.
I like that one the best. Lucy Hale and Portia's. That was my favorite one, I think.
It also sounded to me like this is just a perfect example of how important, and this is completely up to directors and editors, they establish tone. Like hopefully you're going to be directing actors and they're going to be on board with you, and they're going to get in stylistically, they're going to be there. But the tone of this was just so confusing to me that basically what Jeff said is totally correct. I was prepared to have slightly different tones for each of the fantasies and stuff, but when it came together, I'm not sure. This is the least critical I could be. I'm not sure what tone was supposed to be established once they all realized they were in someone else's fantasy. I don't know if it was detective, mystery, we figured it out. I don't know if it was still supposed to be horror. I don't know if everything was thrown out the window and we were just supposed to be confused. That got me. And because of that, I think that final, scene where they all finally learn everything and we learn everything, which is a big boo-boo in a horror movie. You should never give away the whole thing. I'm not sure if any of those actors were in the same movie in that scene. And that scene lasted quite a long time. And I'm not blaming the actors. I'm just not sure what was happening on stage there.
If you throw it back to like one of the best horror movies ever made, Neon Maniacs, no one has any idea why any of that's fucking happening. And it's brilliant.
Neon Maniacs, yeah.
It's on YouTube. Also, it's on YouTube. Find it.
But the thing that Dave said though about how there are good pieces leading up to it. I was sitting there consciously thinking that. I was like, so far, not so bad. I was enjoying some moments. I was laughing some. I was cringing a little bit. I was like, okay, I'm not, it's not a drama, so I'm not super emotionally invested, but I'm caring a little bit more about Maggie Q's character than I am about the others emotionally. I feel like I was totally in line with what they were wanting me to feel. And then the way so many bad mystery horror writers in any medium, really, they got to that ending and they decided to try to justify things that created the most fun, which was the mystery of what was happening technically with the island, which is obviously that's the biggest one. But also, if you're going to try to handle whose fantasy this is, there's a way to do that by using the language of cinema to show us and not literally tell us in a giant page-long monologue. And I feel like it just got lazy. I feel like they were having a lot more fun up until that point, like filmmaking was. Everybody involved seemed to be having a really good time until that scene. And then they were like, I guess we got to explain everything. And then the fun stopped.
Yeah, it sucked the life out of it, like at that point. And then it's almost like they got up to, and then there's a really big twist. Fuck, what do we do now? And it just like and again, like the big premise is that they're playing out someone else's fantasy, as it turns out. But when they finally get to that reveal, it's just so pathetic and cheap.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's never good when the aha. I've seen this on stage a lot. When that aha moment happens, and you're like, oh.
Yeah.
They're obviously that when they wrote it, or even when they started making it, they were hoping you would go, or something, like have you hooked in some way. But if you're sitting there and you're like,
It's also,
the thing is
that you said that on stage.
It does hinge on that, because like the first time I watched it, I was like, oh, okay. And then the second time I watched it, I was like, there's nothing here for me. There is nothing else propping this movie up except for that twist.
I love a twist. Like when a twist is pulled off well, you fucking love it. So again, when I was sitting there frustrated, I was like, why do some twists work and some don't? And I think one symptom of a bad twist in a movie is when it comes down to an explanation. We don't ever really mind it when, villains in superhero movies explain everything because we know it's part of the genre. But whenever, like Dave said, Jesus, I've got a big burp in my chest. Whenever there's a big ominous tone and mystery that's built up, when Bruce Willis was dead at the end of The Sixth Sense, I jizzed in my pants, right? At the end of that movie, you show it, right? They didn't say anything.
That's a Lonely Island video.
They didn't say it. Why is that twist so good? There's not a word spoken in that sequence. He doesn't say a fucking word, and no one else does. So up until that point, M. Night follows his same rules. He shows you certain angles, literally in the filmmaking, and bits of information that Bruce has, so that by the time you get there, he doesn't have to explain shit with dialogue. This movie literally got to their explanation, and they were like, well, we haven't done a good enough job leading up to this, so we're going to have to just explain it with dialogue. We're going to break the rules of cinema, and we're going to break the rules of the island.
I'm surprised you didn't pull out a fucking Back to the Future whiteboard, to be honest.
Yeah. Again, I got a little worked up. I didn't hate this movie. Hate is not even the right movie. I don't think it deserves that IMDb score. I don't know if I think it deserves that Metacritic score. I don't know.
I can tell you now, on the,
that's probably pretty close.
On the rewatch, I have to disagree. It does. It deserves it.
Okay. Maybe if I watch it twice.
7% on Rotten Tomatoes is low, but as my brother hates Rotten Tomatoes because it's like, come on, it's good or bad. Nobody should give this a good review.
I have 2,
but it's not a 7.
I have 2 points here. Okay, so when they're in the revenge fantasy and Dr. whatever his name, what's the name of the doctor that she had, the therapist she has?
Dr. Torture.
Dr. Torture, yeah. He's got it there, and she fires the little electricity thing and zaps him, and then she dumps a bucket of water and she fires it again and zaps and electrocutes him, and the other girl's fine that he's touching. That's not how electricity works.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Not to be that guy, but I know what you mean, dude. If we're gonna have it was in real life.
Like there's bending the rules, and then there's just taking. Altering fucking physics and expecting people to come with you. No.
Also, she's really good at memorizing what those buttons do. I never know what anything does. I don't even know how to type. And she's like, oh, that's an inside joke if you've seen the movie, I guess.
I hit the wrong buttons on this show all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, the other one,
Lucy Hale in this film.
The other question I have to ask you though, while I open this beer, because I just went through one. Do you think that Michael Rooker knew how bad his dialogue was and just did his best? Because some of that dialogue is...
I would say he thought it was clever. That's what I would say.
Yeah,
that's what I would guess.
I don't know. It's just like some of that dialogue is just cliched and trite.
I think...
And I've seen him do way better with way less.
I know what you mean, but I feel like there's a more big picture issue with his character in that I didn't understand anything about him. So like, it didn't really matter what was coming out of his mouth. I felt like they were like, they didn't do a good enough job of showing me where he was coming from and why he was going to be such an important role that he had to say everything. So yeah, I know what you mean. Like the dialogue actually coming out of his mouth felt pushed and trite and stuff, but I think it was more because they felt like they had to say it as opposed to showing us why he was important.
But also the rules that he set up was this island gives you your fantasy and then it turns evil, except for the one person whose fantasy is evil. Hers was just fine.
Right.
Huh.
There's a lot of holes, dude. You're totally right.
Yeah.
I know. It frustrated me. Whenever you're going to deal with like a puzzle movie, you gotta make everything fit. Even with the show, we've mentioned Lost, even with a show like Lost, where I think a lot of people were like, well, they didn't answer every question. They did a good enough job, in my opinion, tonally to reinforce the fact that questions can't be answered on this island. That's kind of the point. This was not that. Right. This was not that. So they didn't play by their own rules, which was frustrating.
And that's the biggest trap to fall into is for writing. Like if you set up the rules of your world and then break those rules, it's like that's my beef with Superman Returns. They set up their rules and then they broke their rules for a big, climactic ending. Yeah.
Do you think they're going to make another one of these? Because this definitely has a wink. Tattoo is here, and now we're gonna.
I feel like that was a throwaway.
Now we've got the whole Fantasy Island.
I feel like that was a throwaway for the fans of the original show, which doesn't make sense because the fans of the original show would have fucking hated this.
They probably wouldn't have seen it. Yeah. I don't know. I think, is there a way, we've kind of been bashing this, is there a way to redeem this? Like, did they do anything really well that we want to talk about? Or
the first half of the movie is great.
They shot the plane down really well.
Yeah, the first half of the movie is great. This was a mixed format one, by the way, from a shooting perspective. You might recognize the name here. They shot it on the Alexa Mini, So fucking everything is shooting on Alexa these days. And they shot on the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema 4K.
Hey, we've used that.
A lot of the action scenes were shot on Blackmagic Pocket Cinema because you can get like right in there, and it doesn't matter if you wreck that one because it's only like $3,500 or $4,000 or whatever. So, yeah,
not 128.
Yes. Well, actually, the Alexa Mini's only 45.
Yeah, I had fun. That's as much as I'll say. I had fun for the first hour 20. I wasn't judging it too hard, even when they broke the rules. So if you don't mind having kind of a not super cathartic, well-rounded, tie up, then I think you'll still have fun watching this movie. I'm not going to say never watch it, but yeah.
It's on Stars.
It's on Stars. Bear in mind, the Stars transfer is terrible too. At first, I thought like they either fucked up the cinematography or the color. Then I looked up the cinematographer, and he's got a list of credits like longer than I am tall. And I was like, no, it's not him. He did fine. And the colorist has all these items. I'm pretty sure it was just the Stars transfer that like made things overexposed here and there. I'm not a fan of what Stars does to their movies. Yeah, pick your act up, Stars.
They also introduced the Stars logo at the worst times in movies. Have you noticed that?
Oh, yeah.
It always flashes up the stars like right at the climactic moment at the end, and then stars.
And is that like a is that like a leftover algorithm? Because nobody else puts their logo on shit.
It's weird.
Is that for like when it's on TV and then it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. All right, people. Fantastic first movie that we talked about today. What are we doing next week?
Next week's good.
Next week
is
good. This is week
Mank.
4. Yeah, the 2020s. Yeah.
Oh man.
2020s best of film, worst of film. Yeah, we're doing David Fincher's Mank, which is based on the writer of Citizen Kane. It is the guy who wrote Citizen Kane, the screenwriter, Herman Mankiewicz. That is the good movie, and that's the best of film quote. And the quote worst of film is Capone, starring Tom Hardy.
Fuck.
And
poor boy.
Mank is on Netflix. And Capone is on Amazon Prime Video. Yeah, we'll see what happens.
We will see what happens. All right, film fans. Well, thanks for joining us for another episode, and we will see you next week.
Yeah.